And with that, I want to ask for a big applause for our humongous jury, because it's like really incredible. I think we're beating some kind of record this year. So please give me, I don't know where each one of you are, but I'll call your name, applause. You can, everyone else, you can just keep applauding because it's going to be pretty long. So, so please give me an applause to Andrea Cabanillas from Adara Ventures, big applause. Ruth Sanz from AstraZeneca. Doreen Arens from Bank Sabadell. Jorge Fernandez Quesada from Bunded Capital. Johannes Blasch from Comstorm Ventures. Leandro Segman, Chemo Group. Come on, we can do it. Julio Sanchez from Timfa. Domingo Alberto from Distrito Digital, Gustavo Caranta from Endesa, Carlos Fernandez, Ewa Capital, nearly there, Sara Pedraz, GlaxoSmithKline, Mr. Owen Joe Haslam from IE, Isabel Córdoba Caudal, Anne Rambo from Calla Impacto, Marta Calderón from Mirth Aesthetics, Santiago Medirichaga, got it right? Yes, there you go, big applause for Santiago from Mondragon Corporation, Joseph Husais from Red River West, Ruben Gonzalez from Segur Caixa Deslas, 3 more, we can do this, Robin O'Brien, Sirona Ventures, Micaela Martelli from Telefonica, and Oriol Juncosa, where are you, Oriol? No, it's not Oriol, where's Oriol? No Oriol. Well, our beautiful friends from White Peak Partners, big applause to our judges. I feel like I just did a pitch or something. And with this, startups, are you ready? Yes? That's where you say you're born ready. Are you ready? Born ready, there we go. So we're flying, we're staying here in Spain with a company, actually I've seen them several times. To talk about this issue, you all know that the global demography, we're getting older and older, we're getting more injured. But the amount of resources that we have in the healthcare system are dwindling every year. So it's getting extremely difficult to get people to recover when they have issues. Specifically, all the stuff that has to do with physiotherapy is not easy to scale. Well, what we're going to see today here with the first company is precisely how can we automate 100% of physiotherapy remotely through AI without any human intervention. So please welcome our first speaker, our first startup from Spain, Ignacio Veiga, CMO of Physify.
Hello. I'm Nacho Veiga, the CMO of Physify, and I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for being here. We want to present you the problem that we have right now. There's over 2 billion people suffering from muscle and skeletal pain worldwide, and the current physiotherapy services are outdated. They cannot even handle the demand. So now we are proposing to offer a new service that's fully autonomous, working with artificial intelligence. And actually, we want to improve and make it everything easy, fast, efficient, and 100 times more affordable. The way we do it is thanks to Aurea. That's the first virtual physiotherapist that works with artificial intelligence and requires no human intervention whatsoever. The way it works is first, we have to go through an initial assessment. It's based on very simple questions and very simple physical movements just to determine how are you feeling. Based on that information, Aurea generates a completely personalized exercise just for you, just for recovering one day after another, and it will adapt to how you evolve, right? Then once you have the program, the best part is actually the computer vision algorithms. So she will be able to see how you perform the exercises in real time, monitoring each one of your movements and providing you feedback on how to perform them correctly. Regarding our competitors, what they do is actually they create a platform to connect physiotherapists with people, so you still need the doctor. On the other side, we follow the Tesla way, providing an artificial intelligence-powered service that's fully autonomous. But you might be thinking, does this type of treatment work? We actually launched a pilot program with Generali, and we found that 96% of the users improve after 10 sessions. Moreover, the customer satisfaction was an outstanding 9.1 out of 10, and the recovery was reduced by up to 50%, depending on the type of injury. Simultaneously, we reduced the cost by 20 to 25% for the insurer. But what's more outstanding is that the adherence to our program is 3 times greater than that of conventional treatments. As you can see, we've been steadily growing quarter after quarter. We currently have more than 40,000 patients, and we raised more than 1 million from investors in order to continue developing our vision. We are proud to collaborate with insurance and corporates from all over the world, and some of the biggest ones such as Zurich, AXA, Vodafone, or DEA. And regarding our timeline, recently we were selected as one of the 15 most prominent startups in Europe by Plug and Play. We also won recently the Zurich Innovation Global Championship. And for the near future, we are planning to expand into Mexico by launching a pilot program. And we're also working on launching a pilot program in UK by the end of the year. Thank you so much.
Yep. Big applause. Stay. Okay. Incredible judges. Do we have any questions for our first startup? First one over there. Here we go. Go ahead.
Hello, this is Ruben from Adeslas. My question is about the health outcomes. How do you clinically validate the results that patients can get?
Well, we work with several companies. For example, that one we showed is something that they allowed us to share generally. We work also with doctors, patients, and we have a complete platform with all the information and the tracking data.
Okay, another question over there. Oh, we have there. Oh, sorry.
First of all, congratulations for the pitch. I have 2 questions in one. One is about the regulatory status, if you plan to become like medical device class A or what is your plan? And the second one is, what makes you exactly different from Kaya Health, Track, or the other proposals, to develop a little bit more?
Okay, so yeah, right now we're working on Mercado C to be able to obtain that certification in Europe. And regarding what makes us different with Kaya Health, I think it's the approach and the way we approach a proactive treatment. So not to develop only by the time you are suffering pain, but also preemptively. And it's available 24/7 anywhere in the world thanks to our approach with artificial intelligence, which also helps. For example, if you go traveling or you have something to do, you don't have to worry about carrying any devices with you, any tracking, and we're always there for you. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we're out of time. So please, big applause for Ignacio. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're staying in Spain now, and we're going to deal with a challenge that I think most of you here in the judges have experienced, and those in the health industry know very well, which is it's sometimes not enough to have the right compound to get to fix something in the body or with your health. You need to make sure that it reaches the right place at the right moment. Okay, and that is easier said than done, because the body has many ways of interfering with this, including, for example, when we talk about vaccines, being able to deliver it through viruses, lipids. There's many different mechanisms to do that. And one of the hardest things to break is what we call the brain-blood barrier, which is essentially what protects our brain from getting nasty shit in here. Well, some people, that doesn't work well, but that's a different story. And to talk about that, I want to welcome our next startup, all the way from Spain, Gate2Brain, Elena Castillo, the preclinical and project manager of Gate2Brain.
Why we should focus on a technology to reach the brain? Because a quarter of us will suffer from a brain disease during our life. There are promising drug candidates for almost all these diseases, but 95% of them fail crossing the BBB that protects the brain. And this fact stops their development and the opportunity for patients. I'm Elena Castillo, and I'm the preclinical project manager at Gate2Brain. At Gate2Brain, we have developed a patented peptide-based technology that helps drugs from different natures to reach the brain. Protease resistance, low antigenicity, and the fact that Gate2Brain technology does not affect the normal function of the BBB are some of the competitive advantages that stands out Gate2Brain in front of the competitors. The first indication that will benefit from Gate2Brain technology are pediatric brain tumors, as it is a clear unmet medical need that would lead to an orphan drug designation, but also because we have access to patient-derived xenograft models of these diseases and Hospital Sant Joan de Déu as a reference hospital as a co-founder. We have recently achieved promising results of the therapeutic efficacy of G2B002 in intracranial xenograph models. We have shown an increase in survival of 43% and a tumor burden reduction of 33% on treated animals. After the phase 1/2A clinical trial, G2B002 will be mature enough to be licensed out to pharma. The potential licensee will be the one bringing G2B002 to the market for IPG and pediatric glioblastoma, and even expanding to adult tumors sensitive to the same drug. The TAM is valued in 4.6 billion euros, considering all the CNS disorders that can be targeted with get-to-brain technology. And the sum is valued in 215 million, considering total sales in pediatric brain tumors and a 12% market share in adult glioblastoma. Our strategy is to further develop G2B002, reaching a clinical trial in 2025, and then license it. In parallel, and going beyond pediatric oncology, we are actively looking for a co-development to use our technology with the drug candidates of Big Pharma. We are a team with a long experience in peptides, oncology, and drug delivery, as well as business and pharma operations that, working together with our external advisors, dream to cross barriers and bring medicines beyond them. Thank you for your attention and this opportunity.
Okay, judges, any question, please?
Thank you for your presentation. I would like to know, how do you feel about potential competition arising, for example, for systems that use ultrasounds to open the BBB?
There are different technologies that use a similar approach as us. They are the ones that use peptides as shuttles, but the main problem is that these competitors don't have optimized the peptide, so our stability in plasma is more than 24 hours, and the competitors is less than 20 minutes. Regarding the ultrasounds, it's an invasive technique, as you don't know exactly where you open and when you can cross the BBB, so it's not really a safe approach at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Second question, anyone? Any takers?
Okay.
Ah, they're afraid of you now.
No, not really.
Your boss, you got them afraid. No? One final question? No? Okay, then.
Thank you very much.
Big applause. Thank you very much, Elena. Let's try this. Who here uses ChatGPT? Those that are not raising their hand, I don't believe you. Everyone here knows ChatGPT, okay? So there's been a revolution when it comes to AI and a specific field that we call natural language processing, so how machines can understand language. Now, despite the power that we have with other systems, there's still this issue of security. There's still this issue of privacy. How do you get access and process this private information from patients, from trials, and actually make it accessible to the doctors to do many different things? Well, precisely to talk about that and to showcase their technology, I want to welcome our next startup, also from Spain. And ready? So we have the CEO and founder of Iomed Medical Solutions, Javier De Oca.
Thank you, Alex. What an intro. Good energy. Alex was saying this at the very beginning, in the introduction of this session. Healthcare is in trouble, right? We've heard this from many perspectives, demographics, budget, resources in general, quality of care, a variety of problems. I'm here to talk about another very specific one that is equally real, which is data. In healthcare, we're not really using our data as we do in other industries, basically because our data looks like this. This is an example of how information is collected in hospitals. A real example, by the way. Medical records, these are called. What is the problem about this? The problem, obviously, here is that most of the clinically relevant, interesting information about patients is being collected in this format, which means most of it is unstructured. It's siloed. It's not shared among hospitals. It requires manual extraction. It's obviously language dependent. That means that when a hospital wants to do something interesting, wants to evaluate what's going on in the hospital, they need to manually extract that information, means that something as simple as an observational study gets complicated, gets long, gets expensive, right? But what if every hospital around us would be collecting that data in the same format, in the same language, using the same standards, and communicating to each other? Well, that's exactly what we're doing. Our technology is helping hospitals transform the data that they have already collected and the data that they are daily collecting, transforming it into something structured, scalable, interconnected, interoperable, that helps them interact among each other and actually really use the data. This is already going on, this is already happening. 18 hospitals have already used or are already using our technology, a database that encompasses more than 20 million patients around Southern Europe. Our technology mainly has three components: natural language processing to transform healthcare text data, our federated data system ensuring data security, and finally the standardization of the data. Thanks to our technology, look at the same case we were showcasing at the beginning. Simple, quick, fast, essentially efficient, right? We're just a data broker here, meaning our business model is very simple, very clean. We transform the data, give the world an access to the data, obviously on consent of the hospitals. Simple, clean. We're already building our own products on these data that help us consume that information very quickly, and we have therefore scaled very fast throughout the hospitals in our market and through some of the biggest clients in our field. Currently, we are closing our Series A fundraise and expanding throughout Europe. Thank you very much for your attention. Stole me one slide.
Javier against the clock. Judges, questions, please.
Hi, Javier. It's Johannes from Calmstone Ventures. First of all, awesome presentation. You crushed it. How scalable is this, both in terms of how transferable is it from hospital to hospital? Mm-hmm. Can you easily copy paste? And secondly, what's the onboarding process like?
I won't lie. No one is going to pitch today here and say, yeah, it's copy paste in healthcare. It doesn't work like that. It's never that easy. That said, once we deploy in a hospital that is using one particular EHR system, let's say SAP, let's say Cerner, whatever it is, we can rather easily then copy that into another hospital using the same system. It's never going to be like a real copy-paste from one hospital to the other, but the good thing here is we do this once, and that hospital is still ongoing. We just invest once per hospital. And the investment is pretty clean in that sense. It's an ETL process, very simple. Data stays within the hospital. Deployment time between 2-point-something months into 5 months, depending on the hospital. That's pretty quick for the industry, actually. But as I said, from that point on, data is available for it to be used mainly by the hospital, but also by external partners. Hopefully, I did cover the question.
One quick question there, the lady.
Javier, thank you for your presentation. What do you need to be the standard in the market in terms of economics and technology?
Well, the cool thing here is we're already using the standard of the market. I don't think I can go back on the slides, but we're using healthcare data standard. It's called OMOP, Common Data Model. Some of you may be familiar with this, but it's basically a common data model that's currently being used in around 300 hospitals around Europe. It's slowly becoming the standard in the industry. So what the cool point here is that once we deploy in one of those hospitals, they can quickly interact with other hospitals using OMOP. The thing is, what we bring to the table in that sense is the combination of OMOP with NLP, with a federated system, and obviously with the data protection measures that we put on the table.
Short, Javier, short.
Oh, yeah. Basically, we're already using the international standard here.
Very good. Big applause to Javier. Thank you very much. And now we're going to talk, I mean, there's been a whole revolution in the healthcare industry at many stages, but maybe one that has been making the rounds very noisily is the idea of predictive medicine. What if we could actually track things before they get worse, before they become a problem? And maybe one of the ones that we see dramatically, and it actually happens, for example, to my wife, is dermatology. It's fairly easy. You see your skin all day long, but sometimes it's hard to actually keep track of what's going on. Well, our next startup precisely has a solution that not only tracks, monitors, and predictively diagnose what might be, and allows you to do the triage for your dermatological issues. Please welcome our next speaker from Legit Health, the COO, Tate McCarthy.
Thank you so much, everyone. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm going to speak about a very specific area of AI, which is computer vision. We apply that in medicine, but the basic idea is that by using this, any healthcare provider, albeit a nurse or a GP, is able to perform in dermatology with an equiparable experience to that of the most expert dermatologist. And I'm going to start with a case that you may be familiar with, which is this is Mr. Jackman. He is famously a patient of skin cancer, and he has been raising a lot of awareness. So is Alex's wife, which I didn't know about, and so it's Kim Kardashian, who suffers from psoriasis. But these are the cases that are not so famous. And I have this example from my grandmother. This is some years ago when I was testing the prototype of the AI that I was developing. And just by doing a test, I found out that my grandmother had skin cancer. And thanks to that, we found out really quickly and basically saved her life. And that is a huge problem because there are not enough specialists. There are not enough dermatologists. This is a industry-wide problem, and it's a huge problem. And a really high percentage of the population suffers from skin conditions. A latest study in the European Union says that more than half of the people have complained of a skin disorder in the last year. So it's a huge amount of people suffering, which results in waiting lists of, I have here data for 6 to 12 months, but I'm aware of this being even 2 years in many hospitals here in Spain. So what we're doing is we're using AI that is using images trained with the consensus of the most expert dermatologists. And the right way of thinking about this is what, or the question that we answer is, what makes a dermatologist special? Why are they special? One of the things they can do is this, looking at the image and saying, what does it have? Can you guess? No? Well, this is psoriasis. It's not so difficult, but the thing is that this is not the scarce resource. This is done by us with a very high performance, but also other companies. The problem would be, how much psoriasis do they have? This is way different, and we are leading this effort worldwide. And this is how we are able to put the key knowledge that dermatologists have in the hands of the people at the beginning of the health process. Put all of that in the hands of the GPs and the nurses so they can do most of what the dermatologists can do because they don't have enough knowledge. The team is basically technical, but you also have doctors who are part of our shareholders in the company, doctors who are experts in different areas, and we actually have one of them here, Dr. Ana Sanchez-Largo with psoriasis. And it's a solution that has one in all for dermatology, even wound care and even facial palsy, for more than 232 conditions. So this is very widespread. And this is why so many customers are trusting our solution, and we have invoiced already more than 600K euros. And we have secured already 2.5 million from a 4 million round. So let's put the key clinical knowledge where it's most needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ty. Judges?
Thanks. Again, Marta Calderon, Innovation Manager from Merck Aesthetics. First of all, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here as a part of a jury learning from so many innovation ideas. And I wanted to ask you which KPIs, 2 or 3 do you consider like the main ones for to measure the success and the growth of your business?
There is one that is very powerful, which is increase in the adequacy of referrals. And we increased the adequacy of referrals 27%. Meaning that the patients that shouldn't be going to the specialist don't go, they're handled in primary care, and the ones that should go quicker. So it's a very powerful metric. Very good question.
Judges, another question? Anyone? There you go.
Thank you. I would like to know, could you elaborate a little bit more on the training process? Because if you're able to diagnose more than 200 conditions, that's kind of difficult, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yes. It's definitely difficult because not only we do the diagnosis, but also the severity measure. And the diagnosis is actually easier because what you need is the data set of images and their correct diagnosis. But for the severity measure, that's way more complex. That would mean looking at a patient of psoriasis and measuring the intensity of each clinical sign. So saying erythema from 0 to 4, 4. Desquamation from 0 to 3. So to do that, we have to acquire data sets from clinical validations and then have experts saying their own estimation for each of the clinical sign and then training for the consensus. And this is a whole different game than the diagnosis, but indeed, yeah, very difficult. Yeah.
Okay, and with this, please, big applause.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tadek. The next startup, I must confess, you know, you always have some that touch you closer. But this one is I think it's a company that's very special for several reasons. First one, it touches women's health, which is one of those fields, especially gynecology, which you don't see that much advancement. Now, the second part is it tackles something that I think nearly everyone has heard before, which is liquid biopsy and the capacity to be able to detect things earlier. When it comes to gynecology, there's a big gap between the way we are trying to detect diseases for women and how long it takes and how intrusive and hurtful it becomes. Now, what if I told you that there's a way to do it painlessly and with way more effectiveness? Well, I'll let the experts talk and show you how we do this. So please welcome Marina Rigau, CEO and co-founder of MeMark Diagnosis.
Hello, this is Marina, CEO and founder of MeMark, a company reshaping gynecological diagnostics. Because how much pain a woman needs to suffer for changing this? The woman in this image is having a hysteroscopy. It is painful, it is invasive, and it can tear the uterus to cause hemorrhagia and lead to infection. And together with this woman, there are 50 million women worldwide that suffer from abnormal uterine bleeding every year, which is the triggering event for starting endometrial cancer diagnosis. In developed countries, this is the most common gynecological cancer. But how often does this bleeding actually lead to a cancer diagnosis? Well, in only 1 to 10% of cases. That means so many women will undergo unnecessary diagnostic procedures. Endometrial cancer diagnosis today is based on the observation of tumoral cells in an endometrial biopsy that can be obtained by an aspiration. But for 1 out of 3 patients, the sample contains no cells. And no cells means no diagnosis. And no diagnosis means that we will need to perform the hysteroscopy. So diagnosis today fails because cells are not always available. But what if there is something else, something that mimics the tissue and that it's accessible in a non-invasive manner? Well, the fluid is the way forward. And in MeMark, we envision that gynecological fluid as the next liquid matrix biopsy in gynecology. As a start with WOMEC, we will change the paradigm in endometrial cancer diagnosis, moving from cells to fluid. Being a minimal invasive and accessible test, WOMEC will help to rule out negative patients safely at home by eliminating the need for performing hysteroscopies. So welcome to WOMEC, which is an IVD based on the assessment of protein biomarkers in the uterine fluid, providing 99% sensitivity. By now, we have our MVP ready for moving into validation, and we expect reaching the market in 2025. As the market opportunity, there is $4 billion market TAM, but most importantly, we have validated the need with more than 200 gynecologists, and 90% has confirmed the need for an improved endometrial cancer testing. And how we will reach this market? Well, we plan to license our IVD to IVD manufacturers so that they can automatize and highly scale our assay into the automatized immunoassay platforms that are running into clinical labs. But you know, that's not all we want to achieve in MeMark, as we are building this next liquid biopsy, so we will tackle other gynecological needs such as endometriosis. And all of that is only possible thanks to our committed team. We are a team of 3 founders covering management, science, and medical fields surrounded by top international advisors. And by now, I hope that you like our project as much as we do, and you can join us to help us accelerating safe, accurate and accessible diagnostics for all women. Thank you.
Mic drop. Great. Okay, judges, questions. I have one there.
Hello, Marina. First of all, congratulations for the pitch. I just wonder if there is any other company that is looking for a similar biomarker or a similar way to improve the diagnosis.
There are other companies looking in the fluid. Most of them, they are looking in the cellular component of the fluid and going through qPCR technologies. So we are looking at the soluble fraction, so no cells are needed. And this is the competitive advantage that we have in comparison with others.
I would say there is so much to improve that it doesn't really matter. Just get things out there. More questions, please, judges.
Hi, it's Johannes from Calm Storm. So we are a fund, we've done around 70 health tech investments in the early stage and over 10 to 15 femtech investments as well. And a third of our CEOs are female. How is it like for you as a female founder to fundraise from mostly male investors? And you know the numbers out there. It's only 2 to 3% of the funding volume in total goes to female founding teams.
Well, I think that there are more and more investors that are now open and willing to invest in female founders company and also femtech companies. So it's not easy, I have to confess, but at the same time we have like a very nice project that we are looking for and fighting for. And as a female founder working for femtech, it's like amazing.
Big applause for Marina. Thank you so much. I have to say, people ask me, this is the best job ever. To get to see these people pitching this cutting edge stuff, it's an unbelievable job. Anyway, this time we're flying all the way to the UK, and we're going to be talking about something that has been accelerating in the past few years, which is the capacity to do universal genomic screening. So as machines become faster and more accurate in terms of how to do genomic analysis, then we can start applying all our AIs and algorithms to detect different diseases. In this case, we're going to be talking about what we call the silent killer. Anyone? Silent killer? No? The doctors know what I'm talking about. Cardiovascular diseases, okay? The largest reason for death worldwide, okay? And to talk about how we deploy this technology of genomic screening, leveraging artificial intelligence, we have our next speaker. Please welcome Mark Ramon, co-founder of Multiple IA Health.
Thank you, Alex. That was great. It's Multiply Health. And I can't wait to tell you about universal genomic screening. But first, just take a look around you for 1 second. 1 in 3 of us will die of cardiovascular disease. It's the #1 killer on Earth, twice as deadly as cancer. It's not just a male issue. It kills a lot of women as well. And it's the #1 reason for health spending waste in the world due to under and overdiagnosis. The problem is just that millions of people are at risk without knowing it. We have the case that you have blood pressure and cholesterol as really, really blunt instruments. Doctors just don't have the precision tools to be able to treat and diagnose the problem. That's really, really frustrating for them, and it's really dangerous for supposedly low-risk people like me. What if I told you that precision medicine for cardiovascular disease is just a blood test away? With a single blood draw, we can detect the risks early and intervene before it gets dangerous. Our technology is using next-gen sequencing in a bioinformatic process that's proprietary to basically transform all the data that's embedded in your RNA into this image called a super biomarker. That's really ideal for algorithmic analysis and classification. Universal genomic screening is based on 3 basic pillars. The first is accessibility. It's not necessary to go to a hospital. It's available anytime, anywhere, even remotely. Universal affordability, and this is the most important. basically, our technology is based on technologies that have unit costs that are dropping exponentially year on year. Once it gets low enough, it'll be affordable for just about anybody on Earth. And finally, if we're going to be really universal, we need to be sustainable, right? And we plan to be net positive. From a competitive point of view, there's two things we do differently. One is we use the whole genomic sequence, not just a panel of genes. And we use RNA, not DNA, which is really important for identifying the environmental factors relevant for cardiovascular disease, not just hereditary predisposition. We've made an enormous amount of progress participating in Tier 1 acceleration programs. 2022 was all about clinical trials with partners that are amazing, and we're getting to market this year after having raised a seed round last year to also expand the team. Our team is 20 members of a global diverse team led by a cardiologist who's turned data scientist, a molecular biologist, RNA expert, and 2 entrepreneurs who also have MBAs. We're looking for these 3 things in order to try to turn what we call sick care into the future of healthcare using universal genomic screening. Thank you.
I was like,
it was already a 0.
Yeah, right on time. Okay, question for Mark, please. Judges, Mr. Joe.
Hi there. What's the attitude in the medical community to early screening? You know, traditionally they've waited until you have the problem. Are people embracing that?
It's a great question. I think it's one of the biggest risks that we're de-risking. So there's a company called Grail that came out with a product in the just recent years to do this for cancer with a liquid biopsy like we do. Their biggest barrier has been getting it through the clinicians. Most clinicians are very traditional in their approach. What we're planning to do, and what we're doing, is going to concierge medicine in the US to start to get some traction. And then others like self-employed, self-insured employers that have a real benefit from looking at this. And the other big group is life insurance, which is interesting because they're all about keeping people alive as long as possible. So there's resistance, but eventually we think that that resistance will be overcome by just the massive benefit of actually having people not get heart attacks and strokes.
Okay, another question, judges? You're set? Okay then, big applause for Mark. Thank you very much, Mark. Now, there's a lot of new technology flying all around the place, but maybe one of the hardest things to decode in the body, and I think we have a bunch of people that know a lot about this, is the immune system. Every time I talk with specialists, it's like, okay, so how does this work? And they go like, we don't know. And like, what? It's like, and how does this part of the immune system work? Yeah, it is like this, but it's way more complicated, okay? So the immune system is an extremely complex system that is definitely involved in a lot of the things, obviously, that happens in the human body. And precisely our next startup is focusing on a very, I would say, very unique angle on how to do precocious diagnosis around this kind of diseases, so the different kind of issues that you have with the immune system, using high-resolution immune cell sequencing of the immune system, and then deploying artificial intelligence to develop the diagnosis and the right therapy for that patient. Please welcome our next startup. Big applause for Bijay Baswani, CEO and co-founder of Omniscope.
I'm Vijay from Omniscope, where we see what your immune system is seeing. And let me tell you why I'm standing here today. A couple of years ago, my father, who was in perfect health, started to get very ill. And in a short time, we went through a massive amount of tests, multiple consultations, with the pain of not knowing exactly what was going on. And I'm here because I don't want that to happen to you. I want to change that. And the idea is, what if we had one test which gave you an understanding of what is happening in your body? Well, we didn't have to look very long for that. Your immune system has been perfected by 500 million years of evolution. It detects and treats pretty much all diseases. Why haven't we been able to crack this code and use it? Well, it's because your immune system has a massive diversity. There are trillions of cells which change with every disease and every therapy. So at Omniscope, we've developed a platform technology, which starts off with clinical samples such as blood draws, and allows us to sequence 1 million immune cells. That's 100-fold more than any other technology today. And this allows us to understand that diversity in great resolution. It's here that we apply our second pillar of artificial intelligence to create in silico disease models, which we mine to develop diagnostics, therapeutics, and to bring this power to you, the consumer, so you have healthcare in your own hands. 1 million immune cells means that this is high resolution. We see even minute changes, which can allow early detection. It's deeply accurate and precise. Huge amounts of information identify therapeutic and prognostic cells. Because it's less invasive, it means we can repeatedly take samples. So we can monitor disease progression and use our AI-enabled models to match you to the ideal therapy in a personalized and off-the-shelf manner. The reason we've been able to do this is because the two pillars of immunology and artificial intelligence are represented in our team. And this world-class team has really allowed us to develop traction in the United States, Europe, and now expanding even further. Indeed, we're a revenue-generating company with a very, very strong pipeline. We're involved in clinical trials. We've raised several million in funding, and we're part of some very important international grants with some of the best researchers in the world, from biotech, pharma, to government. On top of this, we really have an overarching goal, and it is to build a complete database of the immune system. And we've already done more in 1 year than in 10. And together with you, we hope to really increase our value so that we can deliver science for everyone, everywhere, and bring healthcare in your hands. Thank you.
That is really impressive. Judges, questions? You got them all. Any question? No?
Once the technology will be ready, what will be the degree of accuracy of your technology in front of diseases?
That's a great question. So we already started our first 2 clinical trials following our proof of concepts. So we've already established that we are far more accurate than the current standard and 10 times cheaper than the current standard. In terms of accuracy, we're able to detect at least 10 diseases with a roughly 99% specificity, and accuracy ranges between 97% to 98% at present. Of course, as we increase the amount of data, it's incremental and accuracy is increased exponentially. And we grab a whole bunch of metadata from wearables and other sources as well. So we have multiple ways of increasing accuracy rather than just one.
Any other question? No? Vijay, I'll bring you the hat next time.
Cheers, I love the hat.
Big applause. Thank you, Vijay. Okay, how's everyone feeling over there? Good? We're doing good? Yes, it's raining outside, so it's good here, right? Let me tell you, who was here last year? Raise your hand. How hot was it? So come on, between 34 degrees and this wonderful weather, I'll take this every time. Anyway, so our next company, we are saying in Spain, and there's been an ongoing trend in society everywhere, I would say, with rates of infertility rising year after year after year. And not just that, but couples having kids later and later on life, right? And that creates huge market, one of the biggest markets that we have right now of in vitro fertilization, and the need for new devices to deal with that. So precisely to talk about that, I have our next startup ready, Hans Genskar, CEO of Overture Live.
Thank you so much, Alex. And at Overture, we're here to reimagine fertility and IVF from the ground up. And we all know how low fertility rates are globally, but especially here in Spain. And as Overture's founder, Martin Varsavsky, likes to say, women and families don't feel like they can afford to have children when they're fertile, and when they feel like they can afford to have children, they're no longer fertile. So IVF has always been the technology that's meant to bridge that gap and promise a solution. But there are challenges. Traditionally, IVF has been something you go to after you've been failing to have a child for a year. It's an emotionally difficult process to get over that. And it takes a lot of tries to get through it. And every time you go through one of those tries, you get kicked down. You actually have to check in with yourself and your partner. Do I really have the emotional stamina to go through this once more? But that's changing. We're seeing an explosive growth in egg freezing. Some clinics in the US now, that's over 50%. And that's changing who the patient is. People are choosing, and women are choosing to take control of their fertility journey and own it. And we're seeing the technology drive this further. For instance, in the UK a couple weeks ago, we saw mitochondrial disease cured by transplanting the nucleus of an embryo. So Overture is building on this industry to put the patient in charge again. So here you see the industry with the 2.4 children per woman that are really what people want. So we are imagining the embryology lab in a new light. Currently, it's a completely artisanal process. Every practitioner, every lab does things differently, and it shows up in the rates. Some practitioners get 50% survival rates on egg freezing, others get 90%. So our platform is standardizing this and taking this industry from artisanal to evidence-based medicine. So our first product, the Davitri, beats the manual process in every relevant statistic and increases throughput in the embryology lab by 4x. This is key because it also allows you to take the patient away from the IVF clinic. You can decouple the lab, make the lab more advanced, and have hundreds of more points of care where these services can be accessed. I want to mention briefly as well, we had our first 2 babies born with our automated ICSI robot, world first. You can read about it in MIT Technology Review. It's thrilling. And finally, we have the top clinics around the world waiting to buy our products. And we are launching our clinical trials this summer and launching commercially in South Africa and New Zealand later this year. So thank you so much.
There you go. Thank you, Hans. Judges, questions, please. Any questions? No, yes, no. I have maybe the biggest jury in the history of South Summit, and I have no questions. Seriously, people? There you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the pitch and congratulations. Can you tell us a little bit more about your monetizing strategy?
So our goal is to have a first line of products that meet the burning needs of the current IVF labs. So our first generation of products will be sold to the IVF labs with a consumable biochip. We've pressure tested that pricing with the largest labs and they've accepted it. And instead of fighting them head on in terms of opening our own clinics, we want to take the current market along on this journey to massively expand access to these technologies. And that's where it might get interesting, but the straight answer to your question is selling devices, selling consumables.
Okay, any other question? No? Okay, that's it then. Hans, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're flying this time to Switzerland, and we're going to be talking about, well, I mean, this is South Summit. We talk a lot about data, right? But when talking about medical data, some of the scale of what you produce is really massive. Imaging, research, like all the sequencing of genomes. Now, dealing with that amount of data is really, really hard. And sometimes it's the fact that you have data in different silos that makes it really hard to find out correlations, causations, things that are going on. Well, precisely to fix that and to bring all the data together so it's easily digestible and applicable and used for the research that matters, please welcome our nearly last startup. Big applause to Carlos Tiller, CEO of Retina.
Hi everyone, my name is Carlos. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Retina AI. We are a company that is unlocking the power of data to enable the right decisions sooner in healthcare. But why is this more important than ever? Because we are all becoming older and because we are all becoming sicker. At this rate, by 2035, 1/4 of the world is going to be over 60 years old. 1 out of every 10 people is going to suffer from Alzheimer's disease, and 1 out of every 6 from age-related macular degeneration, that if it's not treated properly, is going to lead to blindness. At the same time, we have an unprecedented amount of data being generated, and a lot of medical knowledge, a lot of information being collected, and this is just higher than ever before. This data could have better decisions, or could help make better decisions on the patients we have in the clinic or during routine clinical studies. Unfortunately, only 10% of this data is being used. Now, picture a world where we have different diverse data sources in a single unified ecosystem, where all the data is properly managed, where it can be properly analyzed with AI technology, and where you can make the right decisions and extract the right insights for the process of decision making. That's what we are offering with Retina AI Discovery. Oops, sorry. Pharmaceutical companies are using our technology in order to take the right decision sooner in clinical studies. We have processed more than 1 million patients to date, dozens of clinical studies, and we haven't lost a single customer to date. This speaks as to the depth of our disruption of the industry. We stand out from competition. We are the single only platform that enables you to digest all the data, provide the AI analysis for EHR data, genetics, imaging, demographics, and at the same time have it in a CE mark, an FDA-approved regulated environment for decision making. Our customers do not need to go anywhere else to make the right decisions sooner in healthcare. We have a fantastic team. I've spent over a decade with my 2 co-founders, Sandro and Stefanos, building this technology since we were PhDs. We put all our savings into this company, and now we are just thriving with a strong commercial team that brings all the expertise from pharma and medical devices industry. We have been quite successful to date. Last year, we closed with 3 million in revenues, more than 320% increase from 2020. We have raised less than 5 million Swiss francs to date. That is nothing to build this type of company. We have very, very good margins, and we are going to be sustainable in the next funding round, reaching the next generation of development of this company. Thank you very much.
There you go. Don't switch it off, please.
If you're looking for somewhere to invest, please come and invest in Retina. Thank you, Alex.
Okay, Carlos.
I'm missing one slide.
It's okay. I don't know if the
okay.
team can put it, but that's fine. Judges, questions? Anyone? Mr. Joe.
Yeah, could you give me more specific? You've talked a bit generally. What's the best thing you do, as well as specifically?
Internal research and development for pharmaceutical companies and running clinical studies on their behalf.
Like in terms of problem, just your presentation was your presentation was very general. You talked generally about AI and data and stuff like that. I want to know like a specific disease you can identify, a specific drug, something specific.
So we started in ophthalmology, where we have been successful. So ophthalmology as a whole, and there is a lot of treatment in ophthalmology, and then specific use cases, internal pharma research and development, and running clinical studies on their behalf, which is a very lucrative business model.
Sorry, unless I didn't hear you, I just want something more specific. I didn't hear anything specific. You're still talking generally. What specific area of medicine? What specific area?
Ophthalmology.
Ophthalmology.
Yes.
Okay. Are you more specific than ophthalmology?
Retinal diseases, but because our technology is used in multiple areas, I could give you one example. Age-related macular degeneration.
So this is retina. So your technology improves treatment of people who have issues with their retina. That's what you're saying.
That's what we started, but now we are doing many more things. I couldn't go in detail in 3 minutes. But
okay,
yes.
but I'm asking you for detail. Like, you didn't give me any detail. I want detail. What specific problem do you solve?
Running clinical studies for a fraction of the cost and doing internal research and development so you
but
can...
how is it possible to do everything? Like specific studies. I mean, surely you pick something, specific studies, more than other things.
When you run a phase 1 clinical study, you want to reach out to the centers and you want to bring them all and run the clinical study. So it's an EDC, it's an electronic data capture system that enables you to run the clinical study and at the same time get the AI analysis on top. And the alternative is just very expensive. And specifically for retina, that's one of the use cases. I can go into detail. We can
okay, guys, I'm going to cut you there. Big applause to Carlos. Thank you very much. You see, Professor Haslam just, you know, it's not your fault. He put Sam Altman into trouble asking questions. So he's just on a roll right now. Anyway, last startup of the block. Are we ready? Yes? Okay, there we go. And all the way from South Korea, which makes me very happy to have our Asian friends around. So thank you for visiting. And talking about predictive medicine, there's a lot of fields that are now trying to be able to predict what's going on in your body, how to treat it, how to catch it before it happens. Now, the key here is sometimes, can we do this with a daily object? Can we do this with our phones? Can we develop a technology that allows us to catch really important things with something of our day-to-day life? Well, to talk about that, we have our next startup talking about a specific disease that affects nearly 6% of the global population and developing the first digital monitoring solution for thyroid dysfunction. Please welcome Jeremy Park, CEO of Thyroscope.
Good afternoon, everyone. Super honored to be here in South Summit today. I'm here to present Glandy, the world's first digital monitoring solution for thyroid disease. I'm Jamie Park and CEO at Thyroscope, also a patient living with thyroid disease. Let me begin with my personal story. Once I was diagnosed with thyroid dysfunction, it is so demanding that I have no alternative to check disease status other than take a blood test in the hospital. So whenever I felt major symptoms of the disease, like chronic fatigue, changes of weight, which are very trivial in our daily life, I have to be worried about the worsening of the disease in my daily routines. Also, a highly inefficient patient journey made me frustrated every time. It took a long time for waiting for the reservation and hospital visits. Once I got the hospital and blood test, the results came out after 2 days. So I have to take 2 times of hospital visits for 1 time of treatment in every 3 months intervals. These expensive costs and time-consuming processes are truly difficulties for all thyroid dysfunction patients, including myself. Additional difficulty is thyroid eye disease, which is a complication of the dysfunction. This can leave cosmetic and functional after effects once patients fail in early detection. But the early detection is difficult because all thyroid dysfunction patients visit internal medicine or general physicians, while thyroid eye disease is a specialty of ophthalmologists. Globally, there are more than 470 million patients with thyroid dysfunctions struggling for such problems, just like I am. So for them, we developed Glandy to manage all the unmet needs, risk monitoring for thyroid dysfunction and thyroid eye disease in daily life. Firstly, based on biosignal data from commercialized wearables and person health records input by the app, Glandy predicts thyroid hormone level on a daily basis. So this enables patients to take early diagnosis for worsening of the disease in their daily lives and also dramatically reduce unnecessary blood tests for the mild patients. Secondly, patients can monitor thyroid eye disease with their pictures taken by their smartphone so that they can take early diagnosis and minimize after effects. We ultimately enable remote monitoring between patients and doctors based on the data-driven remote communications, which was not available before our solution. So we've conducted researches from 2016, and based on and established 59 global patents and 23 clinical evidences. Numerous patients in the world are suffering from thyroid disease today. We truly believe Glendy will innovate current inefficient standard of care, as well as eliminate barriers to the medical treatments for the patients in the world. Gracias. Thank you.
Here we go. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, judges, final startup of the block. Questions.
First, congratulations on the pitch. I just wonder if you have already plans to pass through the regulator in Europe in order to enter the market, because I guess that you need any certification as well, right?
Right. So we are working on the approval procedures for Korean, US, and CE marking all together, specifically targeting for Germany for the first in the Europe.
Okay. Another question, judges. No? We're all set? Ah, there we go.
Hi there. Thank you for the pitch. Just wanted to understand if this is exclusively for the eyes problem, or you can also manage the other part of hypothyroidism, and how do you do it through the wearables?
Firstly, for thyroid dysfunction, our digital biomarker is resting heart rate. The resting heart rate has strong significance, the correlation between thyroid hormone levels and the changes of the resting heart rate, especially the baselines. So we utilize this mechanism targeting for the patients with thyroid dysfunctions. Once we monitor changes of the resting heart rate and find the patterns out of it, we can predict the changes of the thyroid hormone levels. That's what we've figured out based on the clinical researches. Thank you.
Okay. One final question. We have time for one. You wanted to finish, huh? One final question. Quick one. No? Okay. Big applause for Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jamie, for coming.